Hello, and welcome back to another chapter of my freaking life. Hey, your host, Malin. It is the 21st of May, less than a week until I turn 26, which is... a lot has changed and continues to change. I recently read the To All the Boys I Loved Before series, and I just want to talk about that for a little bit because that book really got to me. I've read other books that I have really enjoyed. I think it's interesting to find novels that I enjoy at this age because I tend to kind of just like reread all my old ones and then like read a bunch of YouTuber books, like YouTubers that I used to follow like 8 years ago or something. Actually, my camera's on top of 3 of them. Carrie Hope Fletcher, Charlie McDonnell, and Jodie Clark. So here's to you. So To All the Boys I Loved Before, I watched the movie sometime last year and I thought it was really cute. It had like an Asian lead and it was very wholesome and just very like, it got me, you know, it's so sweet. And I decided I wanted to read the books and I was hoping that they wouldn't be bad, and they did not disappoint. I usually find it hard to enjoy being inside of like a teenager's head in any kind of YA book. It's like first person teenage years. It's like I've been here, done that. But there's something about the way Lara Jean's character was written that I really connected with. Me and Lara Jean grew up with completely different, you know, childhoods or teenhoods, and yet I still felt like I could identify with her in like a very big way. I think it was more than just being like half American and half Asian and kind of like walking that line like in school and like socially. Of course I did relate to that, like I'm half Filipino and I grew up not really like connecting with my like Filipino culture, and I don't know the language, and while my mom is alive she just never, you know, taught it to me. So I feel kind of like outcast from any other like Filipino people I meet and my own family sometimes. It's weird. Aside from that, there's something that Lara Jean and I have so intensely in common, and that's like the nostalgia factor in our brains. She does this thing where she's like looking at a moment that she's currently having and imagining it in the future. She's imagining herself as an old person looking back on the moment that she's currently having, and she's like, I'm gonna think back to this day like for the rest of my life. And I cannot tell you how many times I've done that. I think it's kind of insane how many times I've done that and continue to do that. And the older I get, the worse it gets. There's the YouTuber Savannah Brown. I've been like on and off following her for a long time, but she recently did this thing called Escape Roll, which was like writing every day in April, you know. And while I didn't really do all of Vita, I actually did complete all of Escape Roll. And for Escape Roll, I wrote a little short on nostalgia and what it's like having really intense levels of nostalgia. Like, I am the most nostalgic person I know, and I think it's nice to indulge in nostalgia from time to time, but like I don't know, I have like heavy doses of it where it's like in my brain all the time, and it means that I feel like I'm living in the past. And well, I know that I'm like better off than I was back then, like especially like in the last few years. I just know that it's hindering me and it's not good for me. And so what I wrote about it in Escape Roll was that nostalgia for me seems to be a bit of like a mental snag or something. Like I feel like I'm so wrapped up in the past all the time, and it's not just like one particular part in the past, it's like every version of Malin that's ever existed. And like current me is like, am I doing right by her? And then at the same time I'm like, but I have to think about the future, and then I like kind of glorify what's gonna happen in the future. And it's just like, it's the whole thing of like, gotta live in the present, but like Why is it so hard? It's the only moment that ever exists, and yet. Anyways, I super duper enjoyed To All the Boys I Loved Before, and I think also because it's May now, and 8 years ago I was graduating high school, and I was having fights with friends, and I was falling in love and dreaming about the future and thinking about what college was going to be like, and it's kind of like the last moments of innocence, I think. Like, it was just, you know, everything was so simple. Everyone smiled and loved each other, called people by their last names, and it was just so easy being that young and like loving everyone so intensely, but like not really knowing why. And it's so sad that everything has kind of changed and everyone's like kind of jaded, and I guess that's why nostalgia exists. I saw a meme the other day. Memes are a thing in 2019. And they've been a thing for a long time, but you know, it's like really a thing now. Anyways, I saw a meme the other day that was like, God tells the angel, like, give this child like all these like really great memories, and he's like, okay, and then he's like, and then take it away, and then never let them like access those like full happy memories ever again. And it was like, that's how nostalgia was created. So, woo. And it sucks because I think that like I'm living in Japan right now. I'm 25. I'm still really young, but at the same time, like my dumb 25-year-old self was like, I'm getting old and I'm jaded and blah blah blah. Like, can you imagine in 10 years what I'm gonna be saying, what I'm gonna be thinking? I'm gonna be looking back at this moment and being nostalgic about this moment, and see, I'm doing the Lara Jean thing. I'm thinking about this current moment in the future. But it tends to help me kind of like put things in perspective, like what Andy says at the end of The Office, like, I wish there was a way to know that you're living in the good old days now. And I know that I am. I know that these are the good old days. And I'm going to be looking back at these moments and being like, well, I really miss being 25 and like living in Japan. But I'm at a crossroads right now. Like, do I stay here? Do I like fully commit to learning Japanese and bring my cats over and get my master's and like live in Japan? Like, is that the course that's set out for me? Am I supposed to go back to America where things still don't make sense, but like, you know, I speak English? I told someone yesterday that living in Japan feels like there's just 5 extra steps to any given thing. Like, the most simple thing in the world, like checking my mail in America, is just like, check my mail. I have a bill. Oh, gotta pay the bill at this time. But here it's like, I've got a bill for something that I don't understand, and everything's in kanji, and I like try to translate it on Google, and it's just like, it's like, you own a stick wire and you owe the government 50 schmeckles for the fun science committee. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Living in Japan is really weird, and like I said, 5 extra steps because I don't know the language. You know, I have to go from one person to the next person asking like what the fuck's going on, and then they have to figure it out, but they're confused because they're like, well, you're a foreigner and it's different for me, and I'm just like, yay. And all my Japanese friends are like, you should live here forever, it's gonna be great. And I'm like, you're saying that because I know I'm cool and you want me to be here, but like, Rosa called me the other day and she told me, you know, me and her have a similar thing. Like, she moved to Italy and did the whole like living abroad thing, and it was really amazing last summer because we met up in London, and it was weird just like remembering being those 2 girls in the museum talking about like our lives and just wanting to travel. And then we currently are traveling, and she called me yesterday while I was at school and told me like, I can't believe I'm this age and I still feel lost. And she's like, it's not like a terrible thing, because what I realize is that we have choices that other people don't have. You know, we have so many options. I figured I just have to think about where exactly I want to be. I'm gonna wrap this up because it's real long, and that's what happens when it takes me forever to sit down in front of a camera. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about these things next time I would love to talk about the Bartimaeus trilogy. It is, I think it's like kind of, it's gotten right up there, real nice and cozy next to like my love for Neil Gaiman. Jonathan Stroud himself, good. Lockwood and Company, solid. But the Bartimaeus trilogy, it's so precious to me. I don't know what happened, but I'm like head over heels in love with this series. And that is a talk for another time. Anyways, I will see you someday if I ever freaking get around to editing this. It'll be August by the time you see this video, so none of this will be relevant. Or maybe all of it will be relevant. I don't know. I'm not psychic, so